Welcome to the Inland Valley Storytellers monthly story swap meeting. My name is John St. Clair. I'm here at the Ginger Elliott Conference and Art Exhibit in Memorial Park in Claremont. And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of us here, and we have a number of people on Zoom. And what we're going to do to start with, first of all, I'm going to, oh, there's Ron. I'm going to put the spotlight here, and I'm going to share the screen and play a video of Angela telling a story, a particularly good story. And she introduces it with a song on the washboard, which I thought was very appropriate and would be fun to watch. Okay. Let's hope this works.
It's me like setting up a campsite here tonight. Sitting in front of the stereo record player. Just wave your hands and wait. Raise your hands and wait. Look. Oh, isn't that lovely? Now, how many of you had some things to play along with the records? Curious? Anybody? Tupperware containers. Ooh, one little star there. Chopsticks on Tupperware containers. I used wooden blocks. My brothers had a set of wooden blocks they used to build forts to race their cars on. I built small houses that Barbie and Ken fit in, and I married them off every morning before I went to school. Ken didn't have any clothes. He just had a red bathing suit that he arrived in. He looked just fine in that. And I got Barbie's wedding dress with an amazing deal they were offering in the early 1960s in Caracas, Venezuela, where I was living, which was that if you filled up your tank at the Exxon gas station, you could win an outfit of Barbies. And that's how I came by her wedding dress. Now, I always felt after that that that's the only place I could have ever come by her wedding dress. And I mention these things because growing up, I really did spend a lot of time in front of the record player. And years later, when as storytellers, we would talk about the culture that we came from, when what were the stories we were given, all I could think was that mine did come from my family, but it really came from the LP vinyl collection that we had. Burl Ives, Pete Seeger, and Carl Orff's Music for Children. T.S. Eliot reading his cat poems, that beautiful voice. And I remember my mother later telling me that she used to say to my dad, I've given her instruments to play in front of the stereo. She stays there so much longer. So I just thought I'd mention that because as a result, you know, one day I was playing my washboard and I thought, you know what, Angela, you have figured out how to continue to have the things you love to play all right there in front of you. They're just attached to this. And I was out in the lobby and there's some plain washboards out there, which were for 40 years in an LA warehouse. And Jerry Keynes, one of our wonderful storytelling colleagues, was in charge of clearing out the warehouse. And she found 40 boxes of double-handy washboards that had been sitting there, 60 boxes of them. So I told her I'd help spread them out around the country. But the lady in the lobby said that there were some young people who were coming up and asking her, what were they for? So I thought it's important to give a little laundry lesson. Because there may come a day when the washing machine does not work. So you need a garment you would hold in your hand. You would not necessarily be wearing the clothes you're washing, but you would scrub it on the board. And if you did that, you would hear the sound underneath them. So I thought we'd do a little melody, and you may know this, but here's your part. It goes like this. Your part is boom diana, boom diana, boom diana, boom. And then you breathe. That on the washboard is notated by the blue balloon. This is the musical rest. So you see if you can hear it. So it's boom diana, boom diana, boom diana. Again. Boom diana, boom diana, boom diana. Thank you. Gotta have that space, you know. If you don't have the space, it changes the song. Like in the Pink Panther, da-da, 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 da-da. I didn't do the space. Let me start that again. Da-da, 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 yeah, yeah. You know, if you take the space out, it sounds like this. So what? What's the next part that goes after so what? Can you really say it for me? So what? Drop dead. I never put that together. Okay, excuse me. That's on one of his albums. You'll need to take it home with you. Back to your singing part. Boom diana, boom diana, boom diana, boom. Boom diana. No, hold on. I just have to pitch this. I'm so happy here right now. I have to focus. Here we go. We're in pitch. Here we go. Boom diana, boom diana, boom diana, boom. Boom diana, boom. Okay, nice.
Hope her telling comes out better than this.
Air Force, the one we call. And then there suddenly appeared before me, the only one my arms will ever hold. I heard somebody whisper, please adore me. And when I looked, the moon it turned. Wait, and when I looked, the moon it turned to gold. Come on in. Now
Can't hear the instruments.
Can't hear any of it.
No, I can just hear her, but I can't hear the music.
Wow, yeah, I'm with Ron. I can't hear anything, her or the music.
yeah, one more, please. Yeah.
I may avoid a story, I hope.
This is an instrument that when we go looking for it later, seeing so we can have one in our closet. It's hard to find. An old fairy tale comes from a book called My Book House, published in 1920, Chicago. Found it in a book on the bottom shelf at a friend's house. When you sleep on a futon at your friend's houses, you get to see really close up the books on the bottom shelves. It's true. And they are, many times, their most favorite and most beloved and forgotten. Once upon a time, a long time ago, there was a village where everyone was miserable. That would look like over there. Everyone was miserable. They were so far away from other places that the peddlers and merchants who made their way from one place to another, they didn't come there very often. And lately, when they had been coming, the stuff they brought was stupid stuff. They wish they didn't all have to work. Person who could have supported them so they didn't have to do that, they didn't live in that town. But here's the worst thing that had happened to that place. And that was that the children had become infected with their parents' discontent. I want to say to you that one day when it was overcast and cloudy, there first came into that place a sound. And the lady out digging the potatoes, the young girl, she looked up and she saw a ragged peddler with a threadbare vest, open, flapping, looking for its lost buttons, the soles of his shoes flapping in the dust. His hat had holes in it, his hair was sticking out, and his nose was running. He came into the town and everybody gathered around because he had a basket on his shoulder, and that was promising. They gathered around and said, "What have you got to sell?" And he snapped his fingers, and the basket jumped from his shoulder, and as it flew through the air, he said, "I sell happiness." And they all crossed their arms over themselves, and they said, "We don't want it." The basket turned in the air like a gymnast and landed upside down. And he said, "I sell happiness." And somebody said, "What does it look like?" And they all came forward and looked in the basket. He snapped his fingers, and the basket turned right side up. The basket was empty. It's empty. It's empty. It's empty, they said. A boy looked at the peddler and said, "Bet you don't take your hat off very often." The man took his hat off, he put it back on, and his hair found its way through the same holes. They said, she did what all children ought to do, should do, can do, and she pulled on it as hard as she could, and he started to spin. You couldn't even see his clothes anymore, just this color going.
Is this the story you were listening to?
That road, it danced up over their heads, tied itself to a tree, danced over, spinned, and tied itself to the only other tree in town. It was exactly long enough, and all the people in town who measured said, "Nice." The peddler took a step back and he said, "And now my shop is open. Come on forward. And if you have a trouble or a something, if you have a monkey on your back, if you have an old story, if you have an old wound, a challenge, if you have a story you're telling yourself that doesn't work anymore, come on forward and put it back." Said, "Oh, they do want." There was a young boy with a bicycle tire. It was flat. His father had been promising for weeks to fix it. The boy dragged the tire forward because he just took it everywhere with him in case he saw his dad. And he shoved it in the basket and he said, "I have a flat tire." The tailor, who had wild red hair and never liked it, he took his baseball hat off and he was hiding it under that. He shoved it into the basket. He just said to himself, "I don't like my hair." There was a widow with two young girls. She put an empty coin purse. The teacher, convinced no such thing as time anymore, she dropped in her watch. Everybody had something. A young girl had a locket. Her boyfriend, broken up with her, she'd taken his picture out and saved it in her underwear drawer. Don't tell anybody. And she dropped the locket into the bottom of the basket. It was empty now, ready for a new picture. And then he snapped his fingers and all the basket flew up in the air and hung everything out on the line. The young kids at home thought, "Oh, see, in the old days, we washed clothes on washboards and they hung things on the line." But the peddler said, "No, come on and take from the line the smallest trouble that you see. From me to you today, it's free." Everybody said, someone stepped forward and another followed. And he said it a couple times. "Take from the line the smallest trouble that you see. From me to you today, it's free." And it was like they were in a museum, really looking at what was happening. One fellow put his leg in because it was stiff and he missed running. But everybody took something back. And then they were standing and looking. And there was a group aha. Because they all had taken back what they had put in. And they started to turn and talk to each other. One woman came up to the widow and said, "Bring your daughters and come for supper tonight." The tailor was putting his hat on and the girl was putting the locket around her neck and she was next to the tailor and she said, "Don't put your hat on so fast." The peddler snapped his fingers and the rope dropped to the ground and like a sleepy snake came and just wrapped around his waist, really quiet, very different than Showtime when it came off. He snapped his fingers and the basket just jumped up onto his body, onto his shoulder, and he turned and he started to walk out of the town. And the kids they noticed, they saw, and they ran after him. And they said, "Hey, Mister, stay for supper. Take your hat again." And he took his hat off, he put it back on, and his hair found its way through the same hole. And they said, "Thank you, and gentlemen, when he reached the top of the hill, the peddler disappeared. And there were days after that when the people were working outside and they thought they heard the sound of those bells. And when they would think they thought they heard them, they would look up and the children close by, they would pull on their clothes and say, Dad, what? What are you doing? And the story would again unfold. The people in that place did not live happily ever after. The people in that place lived happier than ever before. And this is the sentence I want to tuck in that comes from the end of Lake Wobegon days. It's the third to the last sentence in Garrison Keillor's book. He gave me permission to tuck it in. It goes like this. Some luck lies in not getting what you thought you wanted, but getting what you have, which once you have it, you may be smart enough to see is what you would have wanted had you known. What? Some luck lies in not getting what you thought you wanted. Yeah, but getting what you have, which once you have it, you may be smart enough to see is what you would have wanted had you known. They-
I'll stop the share and hit these little pop-up things. At this point, I'm going to remove my spotlight. And Karen Ray, if you're still there, you said you had some things you wanted to share. So if you'll unmute yourself, I'll put the spotlight on you.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry I can't do a visual tonight.
That's
But
fine.
I'd love to say in 1990, I had never heard of storytelling before. And I went to the Claremont Folk Festival, and one of the performers told me about the Sierra Storytelling Festival. And so I went up to, I forgot the name of it, Nevada City. It was outside Nevada City. And, it was a very kind of hippie kind of place, everybody dressed kind of like old hippies in all these very earthy toned outfits. And then there came Angela Lloyd in a bright red dress with puffy sleeves and giant white polka dots all over it. And her hair piled up on her head like a 1940s gal, all wound up high on the top of her head. And I remember being so intrigued and moved by her storytelling, by her extraordinary appearance. And it was, I think she was a big factor in me deciding that very weekend that I was going to be a storyteller. And she was the gal right there at my very first storytelling festival. So I just have a deep appreciation for her over many years, her wonderful, childlike, and wise woman combo. So just amazing.
Thank you for sharing. Okay, who else would like to share? Jennifer, do you want to share something? Are you there, Jennifer?
I am.
Okay, are you willing to share something?
Okay, just a second. Yes, I do. Sorry, not real technological. Heart of gold. Can't figure out to get off mute. Well, I want to share that she was my very dear friend. But I also hired her to tell stories to my middle school students for years. And I just want you to imagine that she got 7th and 8th grade boys to line up in a line and play spoons together and dance in front of their classmates, which I think not many people can do that.
Oh, no. Amazing.
Oh, I miss her. I'm so glad we all knew her.
Yes.
Okay, I got one more.
Okay.
Oops.
Anybody
Wait.
else have something they'd like to share? Let me look over here. Penny.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
But I want to hear what Jennifer had. You said you had a second memory. I wanted to hear it.
Oh, that's very kind. Thanks. It's just really brief. She used to stay here a lot when she was going between Victorville and LA, and I was grumpy in the morning, just by nature. And she would very early in the morning. I'd be getting ready for work, and she'd sit on the toilet seat and play her quattro and sing 30 in the morning while I put on my makeup. It was just great. And anyway, that's all. That's what I wanted to.
Okay.
Wow. Amazing.
Okay, Penny, your turn.
Oh, that was so real because I knew Jennifer. I knew Angela. So I met her in '88, and I thought, I mean, she told a story about driving toward Oregon, and it was a story in a store about a guy and a can of something. And I thought it was a wonderful story, and I loved it, but I had no clue as to how crafted it was. But that's my first most vivid memory of her. We were having lunch at at an early California storytelling festival back in '88, and I went back and forth. I mean, I turned into a groupie actually. I forget. I guess she came to Community Storytellers a lot, which was in Santa Monica, or West LA, where I lived for 30 years. And so I knew her from that, but I went out to Victorville. I didn't know anything about the desert. I stayed with her any number of times. I went to workshops there. I went to other workshops with her, but I also followed her to places, to performances around Southern California. I went up to Ventura. I went out to someplace in the Santa Monica Mountains, all over the place. And watching her tonight, even though I couldn't hear any of the music, but I could hear most of her voice. And watching her all over again, I'm still so glad I did that, because watching her in action was such an incredible treat. And then I went to the Sierra Storytelling Festival for several years around 1990, and the town you were looking for, whoever was looking, is Mariposa. And as a matter of fact, I think the first time I went, I was rooming with Angela and somebody else, Kathleen Zundel, if any of you remember her. And it was terribly funny, the whole thing. It was somebody Angela knew who had a place to stay, and we stayed out on a porch in a sleeping bags. And seeing Angela off camera as well as on camera, I thank you, Jennifer, for that, the toilet seat visual, because that was so Angela, and knowing her as a person was such an incredible treat. Hold on. So I went to see her. I saw her at one point in the early 90s do a story of Richard Kennedy's. And it was a very serious story, very dramatic, very heart-wrenching. And Angela being heart-wrenching was very heart-wrenching. And the spotlight was on her. And I watched that performance and I in the dark that night, I found her and said, Angela, this was July, you have to do a Christmas concert in my home. Because I was then putting on house concerts in my house. And she did. She came in Christmas time and she did a fantastic job. But that was the kind of friendship we had. And then we knew each other all those years I was in LA. And then 20 years ago, I moved back east. And when Zoom happened, we reconnected because we could through Zoom. And St. John, I want to. What? What? John, I want to thank you for telling me about you. You were the first email I got telling me what was going on with Angela a few weeks ago, and I was very, very grateful to you for that. But I got to see her here, and I got to see her through the community storytellers. I got to see her through Zoom, and then she came aboard the Healing Story Alliance, where which I've been a member of for many years, and I've been on the board for the last few years. So I said, Angela, let's do an ORAS meeting together, which is our semi-annual, semi-monthly, twice a month meeting. And we worked together, and working with her was a whole different kind of experience, just as wonderful. And it's just so lovely to see her in person on the screen. Thank you.
You're welcome. Glad you could make it.
I wouldn't have missed this. I missed one a week ago for technical reasons, and I was not going to miss this one. Thank you.
Okay, do we have someone else interested in sharing on the? I don't see any hands on Zoom. How about here?
Hey, John, does anybody know Larry's last name?
Oh, yeah. That's a good question. Does anybody know Larry's last name? Larry was her husband.
Let me check. I might have it.
I know a lot of people who do know him.
Because we can't get in touch with him, and we would like to know if he's going to have an in-person memorial service for her, because
yes.
if he is, a lot of us would like to drive out to the desert to attend.
Well, you know, I do have the home phone number where you could call him.
His number? Because I don't think they have a landline. Angela had a cell phone.
Well, they had landlines back in the day. Maybe they still do. I could see Angela still having a landline.
But, you know, they had to move out of the house, and they were living in a trailer.
Oh, no, I didn't know that. Oh,
Yeah,
God.
the last year of her life was not easy because
Oh.
they had to move out of the house and live on a trailer on the property while remodeling was being done.
It's impossible.
Oh, that's rough.
Conversations about it.
Yeah, it was really stressful for her and for Larry.
You know, a wonderful thing she said about Larry was back like in the 60s, I think. He did a lot of TV. He was an actor, and he was in lots of television shows, especially Westerns.
I knew he was an artist.
But back
His
in the
artwork is
day,
good.
he was a television actor
Wow.
when he was very, very young, you know.
Maybe this is a moment for me to say, we're having a memorial for Angela and processing grief in a wider sense as well. The Healing Story Alliance ORS meeting is Wednesday. And I can probably put the new link into the chat. It's going to take a little manipulation, but if anybody'd be interested, because I'm looking forward to it. As I said, I missed there was a whole bunch of videos about her a week ago, and my technology was not cooperative, so I didn't get to see it. But we'll probably have more tomorrow, Wednesday. I'll put the link in.
Okay, that would be great. And if you can't figure out how to do it in the chat, email me and I'll email all the members of our group.
Okay, well, I think I can do it this time. Last week was a different kind of, it was an Eventbrite problem accessing.
So it wasn't Zoom.
Here we go.
John?
Yeah.
Hey, Ron here. Hey. I had
Yeah.
I had quite a few memories of Angela, but what I wanted to say now is that I did 4 days with her at her Red House Ranch, working on the tale that most of you have heard me work on, the Tale of the Red Knight that I've never been able to find an audience for. But one of the things that happened there is that it was evening, class and whatever was over. I went up and she was singing a song that was very familiar. So I just joined in. And which is done, sometimes you just need to go back to a very simple thing and then think about your characters in that setting. And that's how I came up with some of the characterization for that very long tale. And I thought that should be shared again. I have memories of her at Flying Leap of Stories up above Solvang, and at the one in San Juan Capistrano. Those were way back, and of course, many, many times more locally. So I shall miss her always.
Oh, amen. Amen.
Yes.
You know, I just went onto her website, seeing if there was anything about Larry, and there's a great quote from Donald Davis about her that I just want to read. It's really great. He says,
Okay.
she is a combination of Maria von Trapp, Mary Poppins, and Tinkerbell.
Yeah,
Isn't that the best?
Emphasis on Tinkerbell.
Yeah.
So one time we had a historian in our group, and he said, your washboard should be in our national teams. And she said, you can have it. Oh, we need to make sure that I want a photo of it. I know.
Yeah, she often mentioned donating it to the Smithsonian.
Exactly, it was the Smithsonian speaker.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be so great.
Well, most of it got used up. That was a type that was used in the late 50s, early 60s by, so, yeah, oh, yeah. That was part of the jug band.
Hey, Karen, I was gonna say, I missed those days 10 years ago when you and Angela would always be there every month.
It was so fun, wasn't it? That was so great. I miss all of you. I hate being so far away.
Karen, where are you?
I'm out in the Coachella Valley.
Oh, I'm on the South Shore of Boston.
might be a little further.
That's
Yeah,
far
maybe a
away.
little bit. Maybe you have 30 minutes more.
But I miss Southern California, and I've been riveted for the last 2 weeks. The Palisades fire started 2 days after Angela died, and I finally had a place to put all my anger and emotion. I followed that for days.
Nick was just telling before we started the meeting that he has a number of friends that lost their homes in the Altadena fire.
What have you heard from Nick?
Nick's here.
He is? I missed.
Yeah, I'm here, but I was telling John that the house that Leslie Perry used to live in may be gone. It looks like the fire went through right where it was. And it's just a question of whether it survived with damage or is gone.
I was really worried about you.
Oh, I was.
So do you know what's happened with Barry Siegel?
No, I don't know. I have not heard anything about that. I figured the earliest I would hear about it is if community storytellers, had any word from them. 'Cause they're,
Next week, yeah. Yeah, I'll go next week and find out.
yeah. There are a number of people who were in the Palisades area because it just spread so far. And a
And
lot of people had to evacuate and then move back. But I don't know about, oh, what's her name, who was putting on the storytelling shows in Malibu for a while. I don't know
oh,
whether,
Ann Buxey.
I don't know where she was actually living now. So, but if it's where I thought she was, she probably had to at least evacuate.
Yes, she probably did. It was Ann Buxey.
Right.
Uh, there's so many people. Huh?
Yeah, and it was just the Altadena part was, I was just telling the others, the Altadena part was just awful.
Yeah.
So many people who worked at Caltech or JPL lived in
Mhm.
Altadena because that was basically old suburb for Pasadena. So the ones in Altadena in the western half were the ones who worked at JPL. And except for like the last half mile, that part of Altadena was gone. The half mile just to the east of JPL, those houses are still there. Toward the east, Eaton Canyon is just everything west of Eaton Canyon is devastated.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you're all right. I was trying to think of who I knew in that area, and I came across something about San Gabriel storytellers. I said, "Oh, Nick." So,
That far north. So, and I never lived that far north except for a few months at an early part of my life. But the only place I ever lived in Altadena, if the house had still been there, it would have been gone. It got replaced by an apartment building, and I don't know if that got burned down, but stuff like a block away from it did. The Bunny Museum, things like that are gone.
I know.
There's
I
some
know.
bizarre and irreplaceable things up there. Farnsworth Park, the stage there is gone. There was a spoken word stage on Fair Oaks that was comedians and clowns got together because it was a couple that were professional clowns put together a performance stage and were renting it out to comedians who wanted to work on material. And so it was this little 35-seat venue for working on stuff in front of a small audience. And some fairly major people worked on their shows there. But it was literally across the street and up the block from someplace where I've been doing historical research. So I know that neighborhood very well. It's like, oh, because the fire pretty much stopped at the northwest corner of the big cemetery there. And this was across the street from the north end of it. So there's a lot of stuff up there. The sheriff's station, the fire station, the cemetery, one grocery store, and a few other things as far as the houses just whoosh gone.
Yeah.
Museum of Recreation is gone. Theosophical Society is gone. Ultimate Hardware is gone. I mean, it's just all the smaller buildings are just gone. The Ultimate Library, I think the nation across the street from it, you say, and the little tiny Ultimate branch, I think was saved, but it was empty. It was remodeled.
Okay.
Old buildings that are up to the property. A lot. Well,
So does anybody else have something to share, either in our Zoom community or here?
I've got one thing.
Okay, let's look at closer to you.
So with first time I ever heard Angela, he happened to tell a story that she had been to Tulsa, which is where I'm from. So I was really attuned. And she said, and on the floor in the little cafe, there were black and white tiles. And it was so charming to set it like that. There's a series of stories I tell to children that are the ones that my grandmother taught me in bed with all the other grandkids, and she'll fall asleep. Wake up, Grandma, wake up. And I set the story that way too because of Angela.
That's
Before we had our spring concert, I guess it was the fall concert. First time I saw her, I saw her probably a couple times, and it was called The Wishing Well. It was one of my favorite tales from her. And she said it was too long to tell at the festival, but that she was going to tell it at Hillcrest, and that I could come. So I came as her, little helper, and got to listen to that tale. And then she told the one she just told there, we heard earlier. And then she spent the night with me, and I got to spend the whole morning with her. Learned how to crochet, made pancakes, and drank beer coffee. And it was just such a blessing that I got that,
Yeah.
And then there was something else I was gonna say.
Well, you went with her to hear Ron Evans do his
Yeah,
Christmas.
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, she was telling me that her and Larry, it's Larry, right?
Yes.
That they were friends for a long time, and they were at the top of this carousel waiting for it to spin. And he said, "You want to get married?" She said, "Sure." That's so
How wonderful.
cool. And there's another one that Donald does. He says, "She is a diagonally parked in a parallel world."
That I was just looking at that same thing. That is such a great quote about her. Everybody, I'm so sorry I have to go. It was such an honor to be here listening to all of you share about that beautiful Tinkerbell angel, amazing wild woman.
Oh, so glad you could join us.
Absolutely.
Such an honor to be here with all of you, remembering an extraordinary woman. Let's talk soon, John.
Okay, yes. Oh,
I have just a thought.
okay.
It's okay.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a specific story that she told, but when I always think our group is such an eclectic and unique group. Not too many people belong to a story group, and all of us are such different personalities. And when I would explain my group or share my group with, well, let's call it laymen, with the civilian population, I would go back in time when I first joined the group, and Karen would be so animated in the group, and the lady that I'm always talking to, Penelope Mann was just off the charts theater in live person. And then you got to Angela, and what I always say to people when I'm sharing about our group is that I've never witnessed a human being in all of my years, and this is as I see it, that is so comfortable in her own skin. To stand up there, and I paid close attention. I videotaped the November celebration, and I had several friends there. And I kept telling them, you gotta stay for Angela. Not that all of us are not good, but I was like, don't leave, because she wasn't here last year, and I told you what she was gonna be. So she's here this year, so you gotta make sure you see Angela. And they did. But when you watch her, especially in November, but just anytime, she will sing, and then she'll take a moment break, and she's just very comfortable in that break and pause. She pauses, and as a performer, whether you're a storyteller or a comedian or a singer or a poet or spoken word artist or whatever you are, there's so much anxiety that so many people feel about standing up in front of people. And she's not emblematic of that at all. If anything, it's a master class on being so comfortable in who you are as a woman and who you are as a human being and in your craft of storytelling and the narrative that you're illuminating for people. And and I just, as a public speaker, I just look at her and just, that's what I always think is there's such an eclectic, talented, amazing human that is so comfortable in her own being. And she looks like she's free of any worry of judgment, and she's not only entertaining herself, but she's entertaining us. And I've never met someone so unique. I think that's what's amazing about her storytelling and who she is as a woman and as just a person, is that she's so unique and revels in being whimsical and silly and very talented at the same time, and just somebody that can inspire all storytellers of what the potential that that a lot of us might have or would aspire to have. You know, we may not match her talent, obviously, clearly, I don't, but just a joy to watch as a human being. And I remember going up there in November, and I stood next to her when we all took the group picture, and she gave me a kiss and she hugged me, and I just, I have that lasting memory of her and her smile. And the other thing I noticed about November, and I've seen it in our spring concert too, is she's always so attentive to all the other storytellers. She's echoing sentiments or thoughts, and you can hear in the audience, she'll murmur something, like, and she's following your story, which is really a treat because we're all telling different stories. And it's an amazing human being. See someone so talented and such flight with her talent and so comfortable in that talent. That's amazing because, I think we are kind of unique. There's not a lot of people that have the courage to stand up in front of other people and tell stories. And that in and of itself is unique. And then she's next level because she's just letting it all fly with talents none of us have that are so amazing and joyful. And that's the other thing I think of Angela is she's pure joy in motion. I mean, how do you not start giggling and laughing and smiling? And, in the moments that she's telling, she's just joy. That's a talent.
Yeah, for sure.
Monumental talent. And a monumental woman that's just irreplaceable. And I wish more people could have seen her. I wish my mother was alive to wish other people. She was just so special.
So if you were not at the celebration, but even if you were, I would suggest that you go to the Inland Valley Storyteller YouTube channel and watch Angela telling that exact same story we watched here.
Yes.
And it's interesting, and she introduced it completely differently.
Yes.
She introduced it with a song on the auto harp.
Yeah.
And of course the story is pretty much the same, but it's interesting to compare. It's not exactly the same.
No, it's not, but it's very well done.
Yeah, both times.
Both times.
Both times, yeah. In fact, I think I have, let me look. I think I have the link.
I have it on my phone and I sent it to friends. I said, look at this amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I have the link. So I'm going to go to the chat section and I'm going to put the link in. Let's see. There we are. Oops, I lost it. Let me get back here. YouTube videos. Here we go. I can paste this in. I think that's the link to the YouTube channel is now in the chat section.
Is that our latest picture, our last picture?
Yeah, it's one of them from the celebration. I don't know which one of them.
That was the year before last.
Yeah, Angela's in it. So we have the link that Penny put in. And in the chat section, also the link I just put in to our YouTube channel.
And that's the current, or that's the current HSA link.
Yeah, yeah, and the thing about our YouTube channel, there's lots and lots of stories that Angela told that are on there, because when we started doing Zoom, I started recording everything. So you won't see stuff from before the pandemic, but since we started meeting on Zoom, I've recorded everything. So if Angela was there, you can listen to a story.
Can I ask a dumb question? How do I get to your YouTube channel? I don't know anything about channels.
Okay, so I just put that link. If you can copy that,
I copied the link, yeah.
that'll take you right to the YouTube channel.
Oh, so I can look at anything you've got on it.
Yes, you can.
Excellent. Thank you. That's a real treat, John. Thank you so much.
The beginning of 2021, all of our monthly story swaps, you can listen to yourself because you went to a number of our story swaps. And
Well, I did before I left. I've done very, very little on Zoom, but I'm thinking I probably ought to come back to it and work on it, because I'm teaching again a class in March here where I live in the senior community, and I need to come back to performing. So
yeah, it'll be great. You're welcome to join any of our Zoom sessions.
I know, and you always make me feel that way. Thank you.
It's 11 o'clock her time.
Yeah, I know, it's past 11 o'clock on the East Coast. I'm
I know, I'm watching the clock thinking, I gotta go. It is late, but that's why I don't come very often, but it's worth it. So thank you. I think I'm gonna scurry home now.
Yeah,
But-
I think we're just about done here. Did anybody bring a story they want to share? It seemed kind of anticlimactic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
John. Hello,
Yes.
Jennifer.
Hi, Jennifer.
before Penny goes, I've been thinking there's a poem that Angela posted on her Facebook page just days before she died. I don't remember exactly. Can I read it to everybody? Because it's like
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
she wrote it for us, and I don't want Penny to miss it.
Thank you.
It says it's from the Irish Hospice Foundation, I think. It says, on those days when you miss someone the most, as though your memories are sharp enough to slice through skin and bone, remember how they loved you. Remember how they loved you, and do that for yourself. In their name, in their honor, love yourself as they loved you. They would like that. On those days when you miss someone the most, love yourself harder.
Wow, and she posted that just a couple of days before she died?
December 14th.
Okay, so it was last month.
Yeah, a couple.
Good to hear it.
So that's from her to us.
Yes, thank you for sharing.
It's also from her to the world, really. Would you mind sending it to me? I would love that, because I'd like to put it out to my community.
I'm not great at technology, but it's on her Facebook page.
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay. And her, yeah.
I'll do that, Penny.
I'm not on Facebook, but I would love to share that with, particularly for Wednesday night's meeting. That would be super appropriate. Bless your heart. Thank you. That was
Jennifer,
really super.
Jennifer,
Where's that
I don't think I've ever met you, but I gotta tell you that story about how you're grumpy in the morning and she's sitting there singing to you.
Right.
Is that I'm gonna repeat to several people that I've told about Angela, because that's hysterical.
Oh, I-
Who else?
Where do you live, Jennifer?
Claremont.
Oh,
Yeah,
you're on the way.
do the washboard too. She's singing away and I'm 5:30 in the morning. I'm so glad I could share that with you.
Hysterical.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Wow.
Driving to and from school days constantly.
This is-
Angela was a morning person.
What did, can I ask everybody what did she do for a living besides storytelling?
That was it.
Or was it?
She was trained as an actress. She got her undergraduate, her BA in acting at the University of Florida, and a master's somewhere along the line. I don't remember where, but that's probably on a page somewhere. But that was what she did. She was a professional always from the beginning.
And she taught it storytelling to children. She got hired by schools to be their professional storyteller. And the last time she was at my house was the night she was in Claremont for the Christmas story at Pilgrim Place.
And I know she was also in Pasadena. I was worried, actually, I was worried about the fate of her school in Pasadena.
Well, what I wanted to share to honor her is she was working on a group of educators all over the country whose purpose is teaching children storytelling in the school.
She was young educators, youth educators for National Storytelling Association.
Right.
That she was doing. So
And she was fearless and she was fabulous.
she meditated every morning for months with the Ukrainians after the invasion. She was a very serious Buddhist practitioner as well, and every morning they did an international meditation together that I joined in a lot early in the Ukrainian Buddhist practitioners. And Angela was always there.
Master.
On Zoom.
Okay, well, I think I may end the Zoom session. This will be posted. It's been recorded. I'm going to stop the recording now.
That was really super.
Yeah, it's too bad some of you aren't going to be able to join us. Yikes, where's the record thing? Ah, here we go.
Penny.
Recording.